In the sleepy town of Millfield, nestled against the edge of a sprawling forest, an unsettling presence loomed. For days, a massive bear had been watching the house of Tom Rayner, its unblinking gaze sending chills through the small community. At first, Tom dismissed the strange behavior as nothing more than an oddity of nature, a curious bear drawn to the scent of human life. But as the days dragged on and the bear remained, the town grew uneasy. Whispers spread about the mysterious predator, its intentions unknown. Some claimed it was a vengeful spirit, others a harbinger of doom. Children huddled close to their parents, their eyes wide with fear, while the elderly spoke of ancient legends and dark omens. Yet Tom, a man of reason and courage, refused to succumb to the growing paranoia. He knew there had to be an explanation for the bear's behavior, and he was determined to uncover the truth. Tom was no stranger to the wild. He had spent his childhood exploring the dense woods that surrounded Millfield, learning the ways of the forest creatures. His father, a renowned naturalist, had instilled in him a deep respect for the delicate balance of nature. But even with his vast knowledge, Tom had never encountered a bear that behaved in such a peculiar manner. As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and pink, Tom stood at his window, his gaze locked on the bear. Its dark fur seemed to absorb the fading light, its eyes glinting with an almost human-like intensity. Tom felt a shiver run down his spine, a primal instinct warning him of the danger that lurked just beyond his doorstep. Days turned into weeks, and the bear's presence became a constant source of tension in Millfield. The once bustling streets grew quiet, as people hurried from one place to another, their eyes darting nervously towards the forest. Shops closed early, and the laughter of children playing in the park was replaced by an eerie silence. As the whispers grew louder and the fear more palpable, Tom found himself at the center of the town's attention. They looked to him for answers, for guidance, for protection. And though the weight of their expectations hung heavy on his shoulders, Tom knew he couldn't turn his back on them. He spent his days observing the bear from the safety of his home, trying to discern any patterns in its behavior. He pored over books on wildlife, seeking clues that might shed light on the situation. But the more he learned, the more questions he had. Late one night, as Tom sat hunched over his desk, surrounded by stacks of books and scattered notes, a soft knock at the door startled him from his thoughts. He opened it to find Sarah, his childhood friend and the town's veterinarian, standing on his porch. Her face was etched with concern, her eyes filled with a mix of fear and determination. "Tom," she said, her voice barely above a whisper, "I think I know why the bear is here." Sarah's revelation sent shockwaves through Tom's mind. She spoke of an old legend, whispered among the indigenous people who had once called the forest home. The legend told of a great bear spirit that watched over the land, protecting it from those who sought to harm it. But the spirit could also be a vengeful force, unleashing its wrath upon those who dared to disturb the delicate balance of nature. As Sarah recounted the tale, Tom felt a growing sense of unease. Could there be truth to the legend? Was the bear's presence a warning, a sign that something was amiss in Millfield? He knew he couldn't ignore the possibility. He had to confront the bear, to understand what drove it to keep such a relentless vigil. And so, one evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon and the bear's eyes glinted in the fading light, Tom made a decision. Armed with nothing more than his wits and a flashlight, Tom stepped out into the night. The town watched from behind closed curtains, their hearts racing as he made his way towards the edge of the forest. Sarah stood on her porch, her hands clasped tightly in front of her, a silent prayer on her lips. As Tom approached the bear, he felt a strange sense of calm wash over him. He knew that he was walking into the unknown, that he might not return. But he also knew that he had to try, for the sake of the town, for the sake of the truth. The forest seemed to come alive around Tom as he ventured deeper into its depths. The trees whispered secrets, their leaves rustling in the gentle breeze. Moonlight filtered through the canopy, casting eerie shadows on the forest floor. And then he saw it, the bear, standing motionless in a small clearing, its gaze fixed upon him. Tom's heart raced as he drew closer, his hand trembling as he raised his flashlight. But as the light fell upon the bear's face, Tom realized that there was something different about its gaze. It wasn't the look of a predator, but rather the pleading eyes of a creature in need. And then, as if guided by an unseen force, Tom's eyes fell upon a hidden door, barely visible beneath the undergrowth. With trembling hands, he pulled open the door, revealing a secret basement room. And there, lying in the shadows, was an injured bear cub, its leg caught in a cruel trap. The truth hit Tom like a punch to the gut. The bear's relentless gaze hadn't been a threat, but a silent plea for help. And now, looking into the eyes of the injured cub, Tom knew he couldn't turn his back on it. He carefully freed the cub from the trap, its pained whimpers tearing at his heart. As he cradled the small creature in his arms, Tom felt a wave of anger wash over him. Who could be so cruel, so heartless, as to harm an innocent animal? As he tended to the cub's wounds, a realization dawned on him. This was no ordinary hunting accident. The trap was too well hidden, too deliberate. Someone had set it with the intention of causing harm, and Tom had a sinking feeling he knew who that someone might be. He thought of Buck, the notorious hunter who had long been a thorn in Millfield's side. Buck was a man without conscience, taking pleasure in the suffering of others. He brazenly flouted the town's hunting regulations, leaving a trail of blood and destruction in his wake. Tom had always seen Buck as a nuisance, a bully who needed to be put in his place. But now, looking at the injured cub, he realized that Buck was more than just a troublemaker. He was a genuine threat, not just to the animals of the forest, but to the very soul of Millfield. As Tom delved deeper into the mystery, he uncovered a chilling truth. The cub's mother had been one of Buck's many victims, slaughtered for sport and left to rot in the forest. And she was not alone. Countless other animals had fallen prey to Buck's cruelty, their deaths covered up by a web of lies and corruption. But Buck's reign of terror didn't end with the creatures of the forest. He held the town in a grip of fear, using his wealth and influence to silence anyone who dared to stand against him. Those who spoke out found themselves the targets of vicious rumors and threats, their livelihoods and even their lives put at risk. Tom knew he had to put an end to Buck's tyranny, but he couldn't do it alone. He needed the help of the community, the very people who had been living in fear for so long. But how could he convince them to stand up to a man like Buck? The answer came in the form of Sarah, who had been quietly gathering evidence of Buck's misdeeds. She had witnessed firsthand the suffering he had caused, both to the animals and to the people of Millfield, and she was determined to see justice served. Together, Tom and Sarah began to plan, to gather allies and build a case against Buck. They knew it would be a long and difficult road, but they also knew that they had no choice. The future of Millfield, and the lives of all its inhabitants, hung in the balance. Tom brought the injured cub to the town's animal sanctuary, where it could receive proper care and attention. As he watched the sanctuary staff tend to the small creature, he felt a glimmer of hope. If they could save this one life, perhaps they could save Millfield as well. Word of Tom's discovery spread quickly through the town, and with it, the truth about Buck's cruelty. People who had once been too afraid to speak out against him found their voices. Emboldened by Tom and Sarah's courage, they came forward with their own stories, their own evidence of Buck's misdeeds. A hunter who had witnessed Buck's illegal trapping methods. A shop owner who had been threatened when he refused to sell Buck ammunition. A mother whose child had been traumatized by the sight of a deer, bleeding and broken, left to die by the side of the road. As the stories poured in, a sense of unity began to take hold in Millfield. People who had once been divided by fear and suspicion now found themselves united in a common cause. They rallied around Tom and Sarah, offering their support and their strength. And slowly but surely, the tide began to turn. Buck's once unassailable position began to crumble, as more and more people stood up to him. His cronies, sensing the change in the wind, began to distance themselves, unwilling to go down with a sinking ship. But Tom knew that their victory was far from assured. Buck was a dangerous man, and he would not give up his power without a fight. They would need all the courage and determination they could muster if they were to see this through to the end. The confrontation, when it came, was as brutal as it was inevitable. Buck, enraged by the growing rebellion against his rule, lashed out with all the fury of a wounded beast. He threatened anyone who dared to stand against him, promising retribution and pain. He used his wealth and his influence to try to crush the uprising, to silence the voices of dissent. But Tom and his allies refused to be cowed. They met Buck's threats with defiance, his violence with unwavering resolve. They knew that they were fighting not just for themselves, but for the soul of Millfield, for the right to live free from fear and oppression. The battle raged on, in the streets and in the courts, in the hearts and minds of the people. There were moments of despair, when it seemed that Buck's power was too great, his hold on the town too strong. But through it all, Tom and Sarah remained steadfast. They drew strength from each other and from the community that had rallied around them. They knew that they were on the side of justice, of righteousness, and that no matter how dark the night, dawn would come. And come it did. Slowly, inch by painful inch, they began to gain ground. Buck's allies began to desert him, his power began to wane. And then, in a moment of stunning victory, the truth of his crimes was laid bare for all to see. In the aftermath of Buck's downfall, Millfield was a town transformed. The once fearful streets now thrummed with a new energy, a sense of hope and possibility that had long been absent. People came together in a spirit of unity and purpose, determined to build a better future for themselves and for generations to come. They worked to heal the wounds of the past, to forge bonds of trust and understanding that would stand the test of time. At the center of it all was Tom, the man who had started it all. He had never sought leadership, never wanted power or glory. But in the crucible of conflict, he had emerged as a true hero, a beacon of courage and compassion. He spent his days at the animal sanctuary, watching over the recovering bear cub, nurturing it back to health. And in those quiet moments, he found himself reflecting on the incredible journey that had brought him to this point. He thought of Sarah, of the love that had blossomed between them in the midst of the struggle. He thought of the friends he had made, the allies he had found in the most unlikely of places. And he thought of Millfield, of the town that had once been a place of fear and despair, but was now a beacon of hope and resilience. They had fought hard for their freedom, for their right to live in peace and dignity, and they had won. But even in the midst of their victory, Tom knew that their struggle was far from over. Buck might have been defeated, but the forces that had allowed him to rise to power were still at work, still waiting in the shadows. He knew that they would need to be vigilant, to guard against the return of tyranny and oppression. They would need to work tirelessly to build a society based on justice and compassion, to create a world where the strong protected the weak, and where every living creature was treated with respect and kindness. It was a daunting task, but one that Tom knew they could not shrink from. They had come too far, fought too hard, to let their victory be in vain. And so, as the sun rose over Millfield, painting the sky in hues of gold and pink, Tom squared his shoulders and set to work. There was still much to be done, still many challenges to be faced, but he knew that he would not face them alone. He had the love of Sarah, the support of his friends, and the strength of a community that had been forged in the fires of adversity. Together, they would build a better world, a world where the bear cub could grow and thrive, where the forest could heal and flourish, and where the light of hope would never be extinguished. And as he looked out over the town, Tom knew that they had already taken the first step on that long and winding road. They had shown that courage and compassion could triumph over fear and hate, that the power of unity could overcome even the darkest of foes. The road ahead would not be easy, but they would walk it together, hand in hand, heart to heart. For in the end, that was what mattered most. Not the destination, but the journey. Not the triumph, but the struggle. And in that struggle, they would find their true strength, their true purpose, and their true path to a brighter tomorrow. In the weeks and months that followed, the town of Millfield blossomed like a flower in the spring. The once shuttered shops reopened their doors, their windows bright with new wares and fresh paint. The streets, once haunted by fear and suspicion, now echoed with laughter and chatter, as neighbors stopped to greet each other and share in the simple joys of community. At the heart of it all was the animal sanctuary, which had become a symbol of the town's transformation. Under Tom and Sarah's loving care, the bear cub thrived, growing stronger and more playful with each passing day. The sanctuary also became a haven for other creatures, from injured foxes to orphaned deer, each one a testament to the power of compassion and kindness. The people of Millfield rallied around the sanctuary, volunteering their time and resources to help care for the animals and maintain the grounds. Children came to learn about the wonders of the natural world, while adults found solace in the quiet beauty of the place. And through it all, Tom and Sarah were there, guiding and nurturing, their love for each other and for their community shining like a beacon in the night. But even as Millfield basked in the glow of its newfound unity, the shadows of the past still lingered. There were those who had supported Buck, who had profited from his reign of terror, and they were not ready to let go of their power so easily. They whispered in the dark corners of the town, sowing seeds of doubt and discord. They tried to undermine the work of the sanctuary, to discredit Tom and Sarah and all that they had achieved. But the people of Millfield would not be swayed. They had seen the truth of Buck's evil, had felt the warmth of Tom and Sarah's love, and they knew which side they stood on. And so, when the whispers turned to threats, when the shadows gathered to strike, the town stood as one. They formed a wall of courage and compassion around the sanctuary, around their leaders, and around each other. They had learned the power of unity, the strength that comes from standing together in the face of darkness. And they would not be broken, not by fear, not by hate, not by anything that the world could throw at them. As the seasons turned and the years passed, Millfield continued to grow and thrive. The bear cub, now a magnificent adult, became a symbol of the town's resilience, a living reminder of the challenges they had faced and the triumphs they had won. Tom and Sarah's love deepened with each passing day, their bond forged in the crucible of shared struggle and shared joy. They had their trials and their tribulations, as all couples do, but they faced them together, secure in the knowledge that their love was unbreakable. And as they watched their children play in the sunlit meadows of the sanctuary, as they sat hand in hand beneath the stars, they knew that they had found something precious, something worth fighting for. They had found a home, not just in each other, but in the community that had taken them in, that had made them one of its own. They had found a family, bound not by blood, but by something deeper, something truer. And they knew that no matter what the future held, no matter what challenges lay ahead, they would face them together, as they had always done. For that was the promise they had made, the vow they had taken, the love they had found in the heart of the wild. Years later, when their hair was gray and their steps were slow, Tom and Sarah would sit on the porch of their house, looking out over the town that had become their life's work. They would tell their stories to the wide-eyed children who gathered at their feet, tales of courage and compassion, of darkness and light, of the bear that had saved a town and the town that had saved itself. And as the sun set over the mountains, casting the valley in a golden glow, they would hold each other close, their hearts full of gratitude for the life they had lived, for the love they had shared, for the legacy they had built. They knew that their work was not finished, that there would always be challenges to face, always be wounds to heal, always be hearts to touch. But they also knew that they had laid the foundation, that they had planted the seeds of hope and resilience that would continue to grow long after they were gone. And so, as the night sky filled with stars and the crickets sang their gentle lullaby, Tom and Sarah would close their eyes and dream of the future. A future where the light of love and compassion would shine forever, a beacon in the darkness, a promise of a better world to come. For that was the true magic of Millfield, the magic that had transformed a town and touched the lives of all who called it home. It was the magic of the human spirit, the magic of hope and healing, the magic of love. And it was a magic that would endure, as long as there were hearts to believe and hands to hold, as long as there were stories to be told and dreams to be dreamed beneath the starry sky. Years turned into decades, and the legend of Millfield's transformation spread far and wide. People came from all over to visit the little town that had faced down darkness and emerged stronger, kinder, and more united than ever before. They came to see the animal sanctuary, now a thriving center for wildlife rehabilitation and education, and to hear the stories of the brave souls who had made it all possible. Tom and Sarah, now in their twilight years, had become the town's elders, revered for their wisdom, their compassion, and their unwavering dedication to the community they had helped to build. They still lived in the same house at the edge of the forest, the house where Tom had first spotted the bear all those years ago. Their children and grandchildren had grown up steeped in the values of Millfield, the values of courage, unity, and love that had transformed the town and the lives of all who called it home. They carried those values with them wherever they went, spreading the light of Millfield to the far corners of the world. And every year, on the anniversary of the day that Tom had freed the bear cub from the trap and set in motion the events that would change everything, the whole town would gather in the square for a celebration. They would feast and dance and tell stories late into the night, remembering the challenges they had faced and the triumphs they had won. At the center of it all, Tom and Sarah would sit, hand in hand, their eyes shining with tears of joy and gratitude. They knew that their journey had been a long and winding one, full of twists and turns and unexpected detours. But they also knew that every step had been worth it. Every struggle had been a gift. Every sorrow had been a lesson in disguise. For they had learned, in the end, that life is not about the destination, but about the journey. It's about the people you meet along the way, the love you share, the dreams you chase, and the difference you make in the world around you. It's about having the courage to stand up for what you believe in, even when the odds seem insurmountable. It's about holding on to hope, even in the darkest of times, and trusting that the sun will rise again. And as they looked out over the sea of faces, the faces of their friends and neighbors, their children and grandchildren, Tom and Sarah knew that their journey had been a blessed one indeed. They had been given the greatest gift of all, the gift of a life well lived, a life full of purpose and meaning, a life touched by the magic of love. So they raised their glasses in a toast, to Millfield, to each other, and to the great adventure of life that lay ahead. And as the fireworks lit up the sky and the music swelled, they knew that they were exactly where they were meant to be, surrounded by the people they loved, in the town that had become their home, their heart, and their legacy. For Millfield was more than just a place on a map. It was a testament to the power of the human spirit, a reminder that even in the darkest of times, there is always a light that shines, always a hope that endures, always a love that transforms. And as long as there were people like Tom and Sarah to keep that light burning, as long as there were communities like Millfield to nurture and sustain it, then the world would always be a little brighter, a little kinder, a little more full of grace. And that, in the end, was the true magic of Millfield, the magic that would endure long after Tom and Sarah were gone, the magic that would continue to inspire and uplift and transform, generation after generation, for all the years to come. It was the magic of the human heart, the magic of connection and compassion, the magic of a life lived in service to something greater than oneself. And as the last of the fireworks faded into the night sky and the last notes of the music drifted away on the breeze, Tom and Sarah knew that their work was done. Their story was complete. They had given all that they had to give, and they had received more than they ever could have imagined in return. They had found their place in the world, their purpose in life, and their peace in each other's arms. And so, with hearts full of gratitude and eyes full of wonder, they turned towards home, towards the little house at the edge of the forest where it had all begun. And as they walked hand in hand beneath the stars, they knew that they were the luckiest people in the world, blessed beyond measure, loved beyond words. For they had each other, and they had Millfield, and they had the great wide world that lay beyond. And in the end, that was all they needed, all they wanted, all they would ever ask for. That, and the chance to keep on living, keep on loving, keep on making a difference, one day at a time, one story at a time, one heart at a time. As the years continued to pass, the story of Millfield's transformation never lost its power to inspire. The town became a beacon of hope for communities far and wide, a shining example of what was possible when people came together in the spirit of love and common purpose. Visitors from all walks of life made the pilgrimage to Millfield, drawn by the tales of courage and compassion that had become the stuff of legend. They came to walk the quaint, tree-lined streets where Tom and Sarah had once strolled hand in hand, to sit in the sun-dappled meadows of the animal sanctuary and listen to the birdsong, to soak up the atmosphere of peace and harmony that seemed to permeate every corner of the town. And as they listened to the stories of Millfield's past, as they marveled at the resilience and the kindness of its people, the visitors couldn't help but be touched by the same magic that had transformed Tom and Sarah's lives so many years before. They left Millfield with their hearts a little lighter, their minds a little clearer, and their spirits a little more open to the possibilities of a world built on love and understanding. For the people of Millfield, the town's transformation was more than just a point of pride. It was a sacred trust, a promise to be kept and handed down from one generation to the next. They knew that the hard-won lessons of their history were not just for them, but for all those who would come after, all those who would look to Millfield as a guide and an inspiration. And so they continued to nurture the values that had brought them through the darkness and into the light. They continued to care for the land and the creatures that shared it with them, to lend a helping hand to their neighbors in times of need, to stand up for what was right even when it was difficult. They continued to tell the stories of their past, to honor the memory of those who had gone before, and to cherish the bonds of community that had sustained them through thick and thin. As for Tom and Sarah, their love only grew deeper and more abiding with each passing year. Though age had slowed their steps and silvered their hair, their hearts remained as young and vital as ever, their spirits as bright and indomitable as the sun itself. They continued to be a guiding light for Millfield, a source of wisdom and strength for all those who sought their counsel. And when the time came for them to leave this world and embark on the greatest adventure of all, they did so with grace and gratitude, secure in the knowledge that their legacy would live on in the hearts and minds of all those they had touched. They had lived a life of purpose and meaning, a life dedicated to the service of others and the betterment of the world around them. And in the end, that was all any of us could ask for, the chance to make a difference, to leave the world a little brighter than we found it. As the people of Millfield gathered to say their final farewells to Tom and Sarah, to honor the couple that had meant so much to them all, they did so with heavy hearts but also with a sense of profound joy and celebration. For they knew that even though Tom and Sarah were gone, their spirit would live on forever, in the laughter of children playing in the park, in the kindness of strangers helping each other on the street, in the quiet moments of reflection and gratitude that marked the passing of each day. And as they laid their beloved elders to rest beneath the whispering pines of the forest that had always been their home, the people of Millfield made a silent vow to carry on the work that Tom and Sarah had begun, to be the keepers of the flame that they had lit so long ago. They knew that the road ahead would not be easy, that there would be challenges and obstacles to overcome, but they also knew that they had the strength and the courage to face whatever lay ahead, as long as they held fast to the values that had brought them this far. And so, with hearts full of love and eyes full of hope, the people of Millfield turned their faces towards the future, ready to write the next chapter in the great story of their little town. They had been through the darkness and come out the other side, had known sorrow and loss and heartbreak, but also joy and healing and redemption. And now, they were ready for whatever came next, ready to face the world with open arms and open hearts, ready to be the light in the darkness for all those who needed it most. For that was the true legacy of Tom and Sarah, the true gift that they had given to Millfield and to the world, the knowledge that even in the darkest of times, there is always a reason to hope, always a reason to believe, always a reason to keep on going. And as long as there were people like the folks of Millfield to carry that legacy forward, as long as there were hearts that beat with compassion and minds that dreamed of a better world, then the story of Millfield would never truly end. It would go on forever, a testament to the power of love and the resilience of the human spirit, a beacon of hope for all the generations yet to come. The end.